Previously on One Tree Hill.
Greetings, Starfighters. Welcome to Mad Science Films. I'm Jimmy P, filmmaker and sexual astronaut. First up, guys, please check out our fourth feature film for free over on YouTube. Just search for Little Monster or click on the link in the show notes below. This episode, I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Daniel Mark Young of Viral Films. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on the show this week. So, in terms of your crew on the feature now, was it mostly guys that you'd worked with then on the shorts? And what was the kind of the size of the crew that you guys had?
My team at Viral Films is myself, James, who writes and produces, well, doesn't write as much anymore, doesn't really write anymore, has a hand in the writing, but produces. Michelle, who helps with lighting, cinematography, and she also produces. And Chris, who does pretty much whatever I tell him to. He's great. But he also helps produce as well. So there's literally a team of four of us. And that's it, pretty much. So it was essentially, for the most part, there was five of us in a house shooting a film. Yeah, so very, very small team. And we all kind of just, did whatever we needed to do. Like I said, I'd be, directing, helping, set up shots, set up lighting, etc. And then running off to, slap some makeup on somebody or whatever. Or, like I said, James was kind of in the film as well, so it was like we all had more than one job to do. So it probably would have worked great if we had a team of 10 people at least, but we were all kind of doing 2, maybe 3, if not 4 jobs on set at any one time.
If you're shooting in an actual house, sometimes that many people, it's just getting underfoot, isn't it? So it's always a good idea to keep it as small as you can, definitely. And is that pretty much how you'd worked on the shorts as well? Was it pretty much the same guys, or were there any new first timers coming on for the feature?
No, it's pretty much the same crew every time. Yeah, I mean, with For Her and Run, it was essentially on Run we had Chris, we had Michelle and James, and then on For Her we had a slightly different team. We had James, Michelle, and I brought in a friend of mine, Daryl, to help camera operate and a bit of cinematography and stuff like that. With the exception of For Her, it's pretty much been it. I think going further back, Stranger was just literally me and James. It just sort of, it varies a little bit, but it's pretty much the same core team. Yeah.
And do you notice kind of you're almost using a shorthand with those people because you've worked with them time and time again?
Yeah, I think you develop that naturally once you've worked with people for so long, and you just kind of, like I said, I've used these sort of experiences, these projects to kind of build up myself, my confidence as a director, but that's more working with actors. I really appreciate just having mainly Matt to work with, because it's just me and him, and we'll talk through something. But when it comes to the crew and that, it's kind of like it's all pretty easy to deal with, because again we have a bit of a shorthand, and to be fair, we plan fairly well ahead, in that on the day of shooting I'll let everyone know what they need to be doing, where we're shooting, what we're shooting, ideally how much we're shooting, what we'll need to set up, what lights we need to wear, etc., stuff like that. So there's always a plan going into it, so you, generally speaking, by the time everyone's rocked up to set, they kind of know what's going on, and we just kind of get on with it.
Did you guys, bearing in mind obviously it's found footage, did you work off shot lists or storyboards, or how did you break up the script?
No, see, the thing is, I am terrible at drawing up storyboards. I hate them. So I never use them, to be fair. I think I used a handful of storyboards on For Her, and they weren't even drawn by me. It was just there just to kind of, I think we used the storyboards more to actually try and get the film funded than it was to actually, use them, but we used them anyway. No, I never do storyboards. Obviously I'd written the script in a way that we could break it down quite easily. I think there was a lot of stuff, and this was the kind of difference between writing this movie and writing I won't say a normal film, anything else we'd written. We kind of wrote a lot of stuff in. There's a lot of stuff was baked into the script, so a lot of the, and you mentioned it before, initial dialogue and stuff that runs at the screen, the chat. Some of that was written into the script, because obviously, our character has to react to it and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that we put in there. And so I think even from writing it, I knew the location we were shooting in before we even started writing it. So I knew how we were going to shoot it. And again, one of the opening scenes to the film is he takes you on a tour of the house. and I like the idea of, establishing the geography of the location where the film's set, so we know where everything is. As an audience member, I just like that. There's nothing's too confusing then.
What I liked about it, man, was it was a really good way of doing that, which you could do in a million different ways in a traditionally shot film, but in a found footage film, yeah, coming up with this concept of he's just moved in, so therefore you get the tour and the layout, I thought worked really well, dude. Yeah, again, hats off. Just using the
Cheers.
concept.
Cheers, man. That's just my way of trying to shoehorn it in without making it feel too like this is
All
a
right,
bit weird. Why
it
is he doing
didn't,
this?
but yeah, no, it paid off really well.
Oh, cool,
And then,
man.
of course, again, when stuff is reflected in the game as well, I was just like, oh, okay, nicely done.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. I think because I mean, I am a massive fan of found footage movies. I love horror in general, but I do have a big soft spot for found footage movies, and I do find that there's always the same questions brought up. Why are you still filming? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And so I think filmmakers usually try and address these, but never really come up with like good excuses or answers for them. So I feel like we had to try and find ways to make these things feel natural, or just find different ways to do them, or just not do them at all if it felt like it was going to be to take people out of the experience too much.
Obviously, because you were working with the same guys, did you find the need to have like a pre-production meeting with the team, or was it, much more informal than that?
It was semi-informal. Like I said, we had an initial meeting it was more for Matt's sake, because I'd never worked with Matt, and we'd met him through working with Katria, who we worked with on For Her, and he does a lot of theatrical work. So he was wanting to branch into film work. He loves horror movies. He loves found footage movies. So it kind of made sense, And so we set up a meeting with him, and like I said, I very poorly explained the kind of concept to him and said, look, we don't have a script, but we have this idea. We're going to make it for literally no money at all, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think by the end of it, like, he was on board, and I think it's, other than sort of explaining everything to Matt, it was a case of, at the same time, fully sort of fleshing out the idea to my team as well, because they were obviously there present as well. So I put this whole presentation together and just did a really naff job of explaining it. But, as happens. But yeah, no, we had, it's just, we're always in communication. That's the thing. It was kind of, there was less of a need for like official sort of production meetings. It was just like, because we all had access to the script. We all kind of knew what was going on. Every time new drafts were there, I'd upload them. We could all see them. We could all give notes on them. And, if there was any questions, they were always kind of dealt with before we even went into production. And we did kind of, the one thing I think we did that was, hopefully, I think it was a smart move, was because obviously we were going to crowdfund to get, 1/3 of the budget of the movie. We shot a concept trailer for it. And we did that very quick and dirty as well, to be fair. But we felt like we'd done so many crowdfunds for things that we never had anything conceptual to really show, other than us just explaining what the film is and trying our best to pitch it to people, and maybe having some artwork or storyboards and stuff like that. It was like, well, the projects that seem to be doing really well are the ones that have conceptual stuff they've already shot. It's like, we need to make a trailer. We had, by that point, we had the script, and so it was literally cherry picking like small scenes and more action than anything, and just shooting a trailer. And we shot that in a space of about 4 hours one night, and then I just spent the next 3 days after that just editing it together like crazy, trying to make it seem like it was a cohesive piece of work, and I think that kind of helped. And it was kind of weird because it was like the last night of shooting on the film, the last night of production, was exactly 2 years to the day after we shot the concept trailer. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And so we were literally shooting stuff, and we shot it pretty much chronologically. So on the last night, we shot all of that kind of end sequence. There's like a whole sort of 1.5 2 minute sequence you know, where things go a bit crazy, that was all shot in one evening as well. And we were shooting stuff, and we were going, wow, we tried doing this 2 years ago, and it was difficult then. And you know, like there's one specific shot we had to do time and time again just to get it right. And Matt was like, yeah, I remember when we tried doing this, it was really difficult to get done. And so yeah, like it was weird, but like yeah, I think that was kind of, that helped a little bit in terms of getting things done. But in terms of production meetings, yeah, we don't, you know, we're all on the same page most of the time. So yeah.
Obviously, I'm not sure this question kind of will be appropriate for Deathstream necessarily, but in general, when you're looking at casting, you know, are you looking for show reels or auditions, or you know, what's self-taping? What as a director do you prefer to kind of see?
We do several stages. What we decided was the best way to do it. We started this. We kind of did it a little bit on run, but we sort of did this mainly on For Her. Is we'd put out a casting call like you do, and we'd ask for show reels, and we'd wait until we got a decent amount, and then literally we would, you know, download them all, put them in a big folder, you know, and you know, get bits of paper together. We'd all sit down, get the popcorn out. We'd literally spend an afternoon just going through all these show reels, and we'd mark them. We'd give them, you know, give everyone like a score. That sounds really weird, but give everyone kind of a score, and then whittle it down until we've got like 2 or 3, ideally 3, maybe 4 people for each part that we really, really liked. And then we'd contact them and say, right, cool, here's a script sample. Can you do us a self-tape? And then we'd narrow it down from that, basically. So then that would be like round 2. They'd get that far. They'd give us the self-tapes. We'd literally have them doing lines from the film, and so we could really see how that was going to work out, and then make our decisions based off of that. So yeah. And the only part we really cast for this time around was the part of Mia, who was, again, that was an interesting experience, because the idea was originally we were going to get to come down, and even though her scene, which is very brief, is shot on a phone, you know, we were going to get to come down and shoot that ourselves, and in the end we had to do it remotely. So she shot all of that herself, essentially, you know, at her home. And it was a weird thing where I'd never directed anyone remotely before, and it was a series of like WhatsApp messages back and forward. I'd be like, yeah, cool, right. She did a little bit of makeup and stuff. I was like, cool, yeah. She took some photos, like, yeah, the lighting looks cool, I like that, yeah, move that lamp a little bit, cool, all right. And it was just messages back and forward. It was so surreal. So like over the space of about 3 hours, she'd record a take, send it to me, I'd watch it back, okay, cool, I like that, I need it more intense though, or can you emphasize this a bit more, or just you know, give me another take, but just go ape shit, you know. And like, it was just a series of things back and forth. And once we got everything, I was like, great, cool, thanks.
Yeah, remote directing. We did
weird.
Zoom shorts last year, like a lot of people. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm a fan of it, but yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, get people in the room if you can, definitely. So
tell me about it. It was weird.
Yeah, what did you shoot Into the Black Abyss on then? What was that shot on?
So again, because of the idea behind it was we were going to shoot on what we had. Camera and lensing is usually, like, for us, it was always been kind of a big expense. You know, we'd gone from shooting For Her on, I think we shot For Her on the Blackmagic Ursa Mini 4.6K model, which is a beautiful camera. We shot on Sigma Art lenses. Mwah, beautiful, yeah. You know, loved that combination. It looked great. And then we kind of shot this on Sony A7 II with a pancake lens, a pancake zoom lens, which was a 18 to 55 mil lens. So yeah, because we needed to keep a lot of the shots wide. Most of it was shot quite wide anyway. Just because, again, we had the camera on a small rig that we adapted so that he could hold it this way and move things around and stuff. And so he's got the camera quite close to his face, so we needed quite wide angles and that. So yeah, that gave us a good balance of the wide shots we needed. It wasn't overly cinematic looking, but it wasn't, you know, we could have shot it on a GoPro, but you know, we didn't want to do that. We wanted something there that had a little bit more kind of visual impact, that we could sort of control the image a bit more. We could color correct it a little bit, and tweak a little bit, and stylize but not overly. So yeah, we needed it to sort of feel found footagey, and like it was kind of a live stream, but also have a little bit of add a little bit of cinematic flair towards the end, and kind of take a few liberties there when we could. But yeah. So yes, Sony A7T.
What was the typical shooting length? Well, the length of a shooting day then.
Okay, so this is essentially why things took so long, other than people's schedules. So we're literally shooting in an actual house that's in use. It's our producer's house. So we had to be really careful not to break things like baths and things, but that happened anyway. But other than that, it's a residential area. They have neighbours and stuff, so it's like we could only really shoot because everything happens in real time. It happens at night. We literally had to wait for it to be nighttime, so we had to shoot evenings, and we could only shoot as late as midnight. So on an average evening, we, depending on time of year, we'd get maybe 4 hours of shooting in.
So would you be rehearsing up until it gets nighttime, and then away you go?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, we did something similar. We on our third feature, it was found footage, and it was curb crawlers, and it was in this warehouse, and it had these skylights, and of course it was all set at night, and there was no way we were going to be able to black out those skylights.
Yeah.
But like obviously we still got everybody there at like 5 p.m. It was summertime, so we had like 4 hours of just rehearsal. And to be honest, as a director, that was a luxury which I haven't had on any other types of shoot. So there is something to be said for having a small window to actually shoot. It kind of focuses your mind, but also then you've got that opportunity to kind of rehearse with actors, which often, I mean, I don't know what your experience is like, but often, man, I don't get as much time to rehearse with actors as I would like. And I imagine, as you've got Matt, who's pretty much, carrying the film, his performance is carrying the film. Yeah, you would absolutely need it. And you also said you were pretty much shooting chronologically, is that right?
Yeah, so essentially the first I think the first 7 minutes of the movie are literally the first night we shot, and pretty much everything is chronological. There's a few scenes that were shot not out of order just because of timing and scheduling, and location. There is a location change in there, so the actual stuff up in the roof space is shot in a different location, and to the rest of the house. But yeah, like aside from a couple of shots, it all is pretty much in chronological order. So yeah, so we actually shot as it appeared, and it was just easier to do it that way because continuity completely goes out the fucking window after the first couple of nights of shooting. But it was just easier to kind of keep everyone in tune with where we were, and especially with like having all the breaks we had in between shooting, it just made life easier all around to try and achieve it that way. And just I think it was for everyone's mental health as well, just the easiest way to do it.
And were there any kind of absolutely separate pickup days? Was there anything that once you sat down in the edit room, you're like, shit, we didn't get that, and you had to drag people back?
No, it's like because we had gaps, because we were shooting maybe one night a week, even at our craziest, it was like there was a week or whatever between shooting nights. I could run post-production, or at least the editing side of things, along in tandem with our shooting, and so we'd shoot stuff that literally either that night or the day after. I'd throw everything into the edit and say, right, let's cut that together. Let's see if that works. Did we get it? Is there an issue with it? If there was a problem with sound, or we didn't quite get something that I thought we had, or something got screwed up, I'd say, right, okay, before we carry on, we'll go back, we'll reshoot that. And so it all happened chronologically. There was one scene that we did, and it bugged the fuck out of me because I don't know why I didn't notice it, but it's one of those things where like you're just so involved in trying to get everything done, you sometimes let the little things slip, but they're not little things, they're big things. And so we had this scene shot in the where Matt gets a stepladder out and goes up the stepladder and all that stuff and goes into the roof space. Now, for whatever reason, I didn't notice, but he didn't put his shoes on the first time we did this take of it. So we got this footage of him, and in the edit, it turns out that he goes up this step ladder with no shoes on, but appears up in the attic with shoes on. And I'm like, shit, we got to go back and shoot you putting your shoes on and then doing the whole thing again. It was just like, it took 30 seconds to shoot, but it was just the fact that we had to go back and do it. I was like, there's no way I'm going to let that slide. You know, it's in the edit, but I'm not going to let it slide because someone will pick up on the fact that he didn't have shoes on and now he has shoes on.
And yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it briefly, like the special challenges of shooting during lockdown. So, yeah, how did you guys find it? How did you guys kind of manage that? Obviously, you just kind of described that, you know, one of your actors was you directed completely remotely. Yeah, did you have many other challenges with that?
I think it's just a crazy sort of thing in general of having that looming over you. Obviously, we've all got to kind of be very careful because, again, yeah, right, we're shooting a film in quite close quarters with each other, but at the same time, we're shooting maybe one night a week, and everyone else has other stuff going on the rest of the week. You know, Matt had other jobs going on, so it's like I'd feel, I always said like I feel really guilty if he caught COVID and it was because of us, and then couldn't go on to do other things and stuff like that. So we were very, very, very cautious. We went through COVID compliance training. I had to get certificates. I think it was kind of the norm. You had to go through all of that just to say, look, because again, shooting in a residential house, there are neighbours that could quite easily knock on the door and like, hey, what are you doing? We're in lockdown. What the fuck? Sort of thing. So at least I had this, thing to say, look, we're good, we can do this, we're allowed to. But yeah, there was a lot of mask wearing for a while. Obviously, this, that's standard and just standard COVID practice. But yeah, it wasn't as. Looking back on it, I don't think it was as impactful as it felt like it was at the time. Like it made things a little bit more difficult, but not sort of to the point where I felt like at the time we felt like this was oh god, this is really going to impact things. This is really going to slow things down. Actually, in hindsight, I don't think it made that big of a difference in reality.
Again, I know it wasn't planned as such, but if you were going to shoot a feature-length film, kind of this film was hardwired to make it ideal because you've only got the one actor for the most part in front of the camera. And as you say, you're used to working with a very small crew. So yeah, luck of the draw.